After seeing the latest video by Guptill89, who I will call Guppy for simplicity's sake, I have decided to give my thoughts on the matter. Since I have been way too busy to film any of the episodes of my cooking show, I will give a crack at one of these commentary things. Of course, now I'll need an avatar to use, and I will go with my Chef Yoda, as he is both wise and powerful. To get started, I should cover who I'm going to talk about. Guptill89, even though his reputation is infamous because of his misguided top 10 Sonic females list and his viralistic response to the comments it leveled in his direction. He is most well known for his Rant-A-Wreck videos and how flawed that they are. Now for a bit of perspective. I am an IT technician working at Weber State University, so know a bit about this thing that the video I'm going to cover is all about. That's right, the internet. I also have some help, someone who has more knowledge about photography. I'll let him introduce himself and his avatar.
There are some who call me Tim. I have an interest in design and architecture, so I have chosen Mr. Right to represent me.
So let's get cracking!
Blockbuster, an organization once known for having nationwide rental stores, places where people could walk around and browse what kind of movies and games they had. It was something that was homey and friendly. Video arcades, places where citizens could waltz around and try out what game cabinets were available, and use a claw machine filled with toys. Paper letters, messages that were sent back and forth all the time between friends and family. And finally, film photography, a circumstance that involved taking pictures with a camera and then bringing the rolls of film to a photosmith to develop. These four things were really good to abide by. They involved a lot of traveling, but were simple nonetheless. Until all that changed.
Because heaven forbid that anything changes!
These four elements that used to be parts of life have been replaced almost entirely by these products. Items that access the information superhighway.
Well, here you are. It's barely more than a minute in, and we get to the meat of the matter. Guppy here thinks that the internet is the bane of American existence. No, it is not that those previous things, services, and products became out of date and or were not as profitable. And one more thing. Using fancy ways to refer to the internet do not strengthen your argument in any way. No, we do not need your overdramatic gesturing to get the fact that you are annoyed. Your tone of voice says that just fine. Or in other words,
get on with it!
I really don't want to sound preachy and make it sound like I am repeating what I already thought about the current World Wide Web, but when something you feel is important comes along, you need to speak.
Yes, which is why I'm making this commentary. Also, it's already too late to try and not sound preachy and or repeating yourself. It's quite apparent that's just what you're going to be doing.
Here's the deal. The one major problem about the internet that I didn't think to mention before is that in most cases, it is killing physical socialization, something we humans were meant to do daily.
Yes, it is something we are meant to do daily, and this is something we still do daily. I find it very telling that in this statement you are working with the built-in assumption that anyone who uses the internet is now no longer talking to any other people unless it's online. It's these kind of blanket statements that horribly weakens all of your arguments. You cannot make these kind of straw man comments and look like you have any kind of credibility.
With Blockbuster LLC closing every single rent...
Look, I found 8 close to me. And here are 2 locations near you. We see there isn't one in Somersworth, but there they are.
...store and moving everything they do to cyberspace, online gaming causing so many video arcades to go out of business, and so on.
Yes, the decline of the arcades has only the internet to blame. I'll cover this in more detail later.
It seems to me that laziness has reached a whole new level. The way I see it, it seems to me that hundreds of people have forgotten the one simple fact that any piece of technology has the potential to stop working. And once it stops working, you either spend lots more money to buy the same electronic object, or you play it smart and you save a lot of dough by not purchasing the same item. And power outages also play a part in electronics failures. Why am I pointing out the obvious?
Why are you pointing out the obvious? Because that's the only thing you're capable of! Yes, technology isn't perfect. That is true of everything, including all of the things you keep championing. Not only is this not a good argument, it fails because it can be applied to anything. It destroys your own point.
Well, to quote Undertaker Freak 1127, technology is not infallible. It's never perfect. It never lasts forever. See, if you take the time to think about it, do you really need such high-tech stuff that in the old days only the military used? No, you don't. Heck,
So you want to try to imply that the internet, smartphones, and digital cameras were only used by the military, and that somehow makes them bad. I guess it's time for Computers 101. The first device that can be called a computer was first built for the U.S. Census. True, it was just a simple adding machine, but the start was there. The first electronic computer was a military application. It was known as the Colossus. The machine was built to break the German High Command 30-wheel Enigma machine. On a more serious note, if you want to justify enough, I can claim any technology as bad using that premise. This is why this argument is really nothing more than a massive straw man, as it proves nothing.
I used to use a regular mobile phone. Barely. But I've gotten to the point where I don't need to use one anymore because, first of all, there's plenty of payphones around the parts where I live, and secondly, I don't have to worry about people constantly calling me and sending me text messages because every time you receive or make a call, you end up spending more money than you need to. And before you jump to conclusions telling me that this problem can be remedied by switching off your cell phone,
Thank you, Captain Obvious!
picture this. Imagine if your companions were having a party, getting loaded, something awful happens to a friend, and another friend tries to inform you about the situation. If your cell phone is off, either they're asked to leave a message, or the dial tone keeps going on for infinity until they hang up. They'd be pretty unhappy, don't you think?
What kind of argument do you think you are making here? First, shouldn't they be calling 911? What point would calling you do to help in this situation? Other than informing you of the problem, this makes no logical sense. Second, unless your friends are the scum of the earth, no one is going to act that way if you consider the situation. Moreover, what you describe is no different than what would happen if you had only a landline. You can't answer the phone when you aren't there to answer it, just saying. A reasonable person would think that you can't answer the phone and try again later, or at least leave a message if it's that important. This is why answering machines were invented, you know.
The only people I can think of who would need something as expensive as an iPhone are important people, like a leader of a country or a fireman or policeman.
First, why are you using St. Basileus Cathedral? Aren't you an American? Do you have something against using the White House? Second, who are you to decide who does or doesn't need a device like an iPhone? They really aren't that expensive to begin with. There are businessmen and other jobs like mine where an iPhone comes quite in handy.
Online gaming is, of course, another parasite of physical socialization. Like I mentioned earlier, it's causing every single arcade in the world, except in Japan, to lose profit and close.
This is where we start to see the fail in your presentation. In your comments, you are working with the assumed premise that it is online gaming that is the cause of the decline of the arcades. This is simply not the case. Back in the 80s, arcades could compete against the home consoles because of the arcade machines were vastly superior to the home units. Also, the seeds of the decline of the arcade begins with the video game crash of 1983. It wasn't just the home market that fell in. Atari made many horrible business decisions that crippled the primary producer of arcade machines. From that hole, the production of arcades machines never truly recovered. If anything, the Nintendo Entertainment System saved them from dying out by the end of the decade. It wasn't until the capability of the home machines started to match the abilities of arcade consoles that arcades started into a major decline. Just so that you know, that started with the release of the Super Nintendo.
It isn't just home console ports of arcade games. Do arcades need the World Wide Web to function? Nope.
Some do now, but that is beside the point.
Even though you have to pay to use a game cabinet, Xbox Live does the same thing in the web-enabled world. That means you're losing a lot of cash playing a shooter game all day long, and you're not getting out as much as you should. While the PlayStation Network and Nintendo Wii's Matrix offer free service, the fact of the matter still stands.
Firstly, Xbox Live is a flat rate that once paid, you can play as often as you want with any games that you own. Yes, you can buy games from online with extra money or points you earn playing games, but those are also one-time expenses. That is not the case for arcade machines! Second, arcade machines are either pay by play or by time. What makes matters worse is that they're specifically designed to eat your money! You will tend to spend more money in one session in the arcade than the entire subscription for 1 year at Xbox Live, and you could easily spend more than that.
The information superhighway can suddenly go down out of the blue, and it can take days or even weeks to be restored.
Is that why it takes so long for you to upload anything? What sort of internet service provider are you using that it takes weeks or even days to restore service? Do you live in the middle of absolute nowhere, in the bottom of a bottomless pit, in a hole, in the base of the center of the earth? I work at Weber State University in IT, and we are constantly under attack. Hackers love universities, and we never have had any system down for even close to that long.
If you've seen my second technology rant, it's especially bad if hackers are involved. There's even people whose internet goes down all the time. And sure, the plan for a cyberspace blackout on March 31st was denied, yet there will always be a chance of a blackout because, once again, technology isn't perfect.
Well, to put it bluntly, the blackout was denied because Anonymous had to admit that they couldn't do it without stating that. It was nothing more than an empty threat. What they were proposing was akin to trying to block all the roads in a city and then not be noticed. That just isn't going to happen.